Hello, and thank you for joining Conversations with Barbara. With me today is Susan Beale. She is a writer, and she is here with us to talk about her latest novel, Misplaced Persons. Let me hold that up. Misplaced Persons. Susan, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
I've got to start by telling you how much I enjoy reading your book. The narration is full of illuminating insights about people and especially about the times that we are now living in. And of course, viewers will want to know what the book is about. Maybe we should start with that.
Sure. Yeah. Do you want me to do a recap or?
Yeah, just a quick.
Yeah, it's Misplaced Persons takes place in Brussels in 2015, 2016 at the height of the growing terror threat and the Syrian refugee crisis. And it's about a family of expats who the husband is British and the wife is American, and their three children who are born in Belgium, and they're coming apart. So it mirrors the family life, the stress in the family life, and the stress outside in the world in general.
Yeah, yes, I think that readers will. The character of Marcy, I think, is one that will resonate with readers. It's very interesting that at one point in the novel, she imagines what she thought of living in Brussels when she was in America. Oh, this glamorous place. She recalls Paris, the days of Hemingway and Gertrude Stein and all of that. And yet, and Brussels, of course, is the center, NATO headquarters, the European Commission, the corridors of power. But here she is with three children to care about, and probably the problem of what is she going to cook for dinner. So life is far from glamorous for her. I think that's such a true estimation of what it's like to have a family and to be in a foreign country.
Yeah, I think we have a tendency to romanticize a life somewhere else, and you read books, and it seems like a great, particularly Hemingway and the writers in the 20s in Paris, and you just think you're going to meet the famous people, and you're going to be. It's like we all watch Downton Abbey and imagine ourselves as the guests, when in fact we would all probably be in the scullery, or at least most of us would be. And the fact is that the laundry still needs to be washed, and you still have your day-to-day, and it's just harder because you don't necessarily know where all the things are, who to call, what to do, right, what the rules are. And so it ends up being harder and feeling a lot less glamorous.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. And Marcy, too, is like so many women today who deals with all of that, the daily routine, taking care of her children. But she also has this longing to have maybe had a career in art and graphic design, so that much of her thought too is about that balancing act that never really is a balancing act. Something always has to give. The children need you, and one's work needs you. And I think that you obviously dealt with that yourself, because you have 4 children, perhaps now grown up. Yeah. And you're a writer, and most people have to understand that writing is very hard work and very time consuming. So you had those struggles yourself.
Sure. Well, I'd be surprised if there are many women who are my age and probably 20 years younger who haven't firsthand had that experience. That idea of they're just the 24 hours in the day, and so many things that need to be done. And it's part of the position that Marcy and Neil, her husband, are in, which is to say, you make a decision for one day to relieve one stress, not thinking it's a final decision, but decision leads to decision, road leads to road, and you find yourself in a place and you think, how did I get here? I don't recall making a conscious, that was my goal. And you start, I think my generation thought the whole question of feminism, it was over, we had it all and we were going to have it all. And I think it turns out that was hugely unrealistic. Houses don't run themselves. Children certainly don't run themselves.
And you that story is very poignant in your book. Marcy really feels this. By the way, I know that the novel's not biographical. On the other hand, you read writers write what they know, and our viewers should know that you grew up in Falmouth.
Yes.
And on the other hand, you grew up in Falmouth, but you left. You've lived in Belgium for 16 years.
It was nearly 17 years that we lived in Belgium.
You're now in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Just here on vacation to visit family.
Yeah.
So that you're writing some of the Marcy's experiences, clearly experience you had as an American mastering French. Belgium's a French-speaking country.
It's bilingual there. I mean, it's actually trilingual. There are 3 facilities. There's the Dutch, which is known as Flemish, and it's a vernacular of Dutch, and then there's the French section, and there is a very small German section too. But I lived in Brussels, which is supposedly a bilingual city, but it's very, very francophone. It's probably 85% French speakers. So,
some of the fun of reading your text is the issue of Americanisms that they fall strangely on British ears and maybe on French ears too, and we're so used to them. And I have to say that although the one in people can put 1 and 1 together instead of putting 2 and 2 together, but some of those Americanisms, there's one that I didn't get. So here I think that I'm so hip to the jive. There's a lot, and not only that, but our Americanisms change all the time. They grow stale and new ones come in. But that was a lot of fun to listen to the Britishisms and the way French express things.
I think Marcy at this stage, by the time the novel opens, she is a language teacher. She's teaching English as a second language at a private school.
And her French
for adults.
And her French is very good.
Yeah, her French is very good. I mean, it's not her daughter in particular notices her faults, but she has no problems expressing herself and making herself understood. But she still speaks with a little bit of an accent, and would make small faults. Particularly, it's very difficult if you don't come from a gendered language and you go into one. It's very hard to get the feel for it, and you always, this also speaking from personal experience, you understand you've made the fault just as soon as the word's out of your mouth, and that's almost the worst thing, because then you start to think, well, do I go back and fix it, to acknowledge, or do I just plow on? And that's just part of the challenge in living in another language. Yeah. But Marcy, one of the things her students, who are all adults, they're business people, she teaches them idioms, and that's the bit that everyone finds in every language. The idioms are just, they mystify.
Yes, they do. Yeah. They do.
Yeah.
And what's important in the book is that Belgium, and Paris says your character, Neil, Marcy's husband, finds himself in Paris, and there's a terrorist attack. Yes. And it is remarkable to me that they're not at the center of the attack, but very close to it, and eating at a restaurant when they hear about the explosions and the terrible death toll. And it's a wonderful piece of writing. It's so real. I could imagine myself in that instant, the sorts of reactions that Neil has, his thoughts about his life, and the fact that this may be the end of his life is really really illuminating. That was, and I know that I don't know whether Europeans are closer to the reality of terrorist attacks we had on 9/11, but it seemed somewhat off stage for so many of us.
And I think it did feel far away. Because I was in Belgium when the terror attacks took place, when 9/11 took place, and we were in the UK when the Paris attacks took place. So I wasn't there on the ground, but it did feel 9/11 did feel like it was over there. And I think everyone felt, people felt bad, and they were shocked, as everyone was, and frightened about what was going to come, and what would happen as a result of it. But they felt very much the US was the target, and that Europe was not. I mean, Europe is used to terror attacks. They've had them for, always. But on a much smaller scale. And the attack in Paris, which seems so audacious and so brutal, they were of Middle Eastern descent, but the people who perpetrated it were all born and raised in France or Brussels or Belgium. So, right. And that was shocking too. Was that
domestic terrorism?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, it was this idea that they had failed to integrate a generation of young, mostly Muslim, Muslim men, and this reckoning that they were facing.
Yes.
At the same time, this wave of refugees are literally walking across Europe. Following the Syrian civil war. So,
and that those issues persist today. We haven't.
Absolutely.
Have become probably even more critical and more.
Well, now there are nearly 100,000, I think, refugees from Afghanistan. Last tally that have just been airlift, out of there, and that will be the next debate. Where did those people go?
And Marcy is particularly empathetic. She, in spite of her own concerns, she takes in a refugee. And there was an opportunity in your book to see that not everyone, not all of her friends and neighbors think that's a good idea. So that there's a little pushback from Neil and from her neighbors.
But, and her family too. I mean, her children too are for different reasons. Everyone has a different reason, but it's the choice, isn't it? Are you going to be the good Samaritan? Are you going to welcome this person in, or are you going to be suspicious? And we've seen in this country, certainly the view of the refugee has, there are moments where we are very welcoming historically as a nation, and moments where we do what we can to shut the door.
Yes, and what's great about having the example of these characters in the book, the children coming to know the young man who that Marcy has taken in, it's just telling us that proximity is everything. When one comes to understand the other fully, then the kinds of notions, mythic notions that quickly disappear. I think as the children come to see him and understand him, there's a larger theme here of how important it is to come to how we come to know one another intimately.
Yeah, well, I hope so.
I'm sure of that.
But it's also that there are things on the macro and the micro level of this, yes. In that the kids, yes. have both of them, I think, very sort of open ideas on welcoming, right. But letting somebody into their home during this time, and in particular, Alec sees him as a rival. He is Alec, the oldest son, the second born, who's the third voice, the third point of view in the story. He has what he wants, his objectives, and Nazar, who is the refugee, seems to interfere with all of them as far as Alec is concerned.
And Alex has his personal insecurities too.
Sure, he's a 16-year-old boy. Right. So it's a difficult time. His father has moved out of the house, and he's carrying a secret. Alec is, and he's feeling the pressure, and in addition to quite a heavy pressure from school too, as well.
Yes. They're very realistic. At one point, Marcy thinks she never feels as American as when she's in Belgium, and I wondered if that was something that you experienced.
If that's true, yeah. Well, I think it is true that when you're in America, you just are, and and it's like what David Foster Wallace said about a fish doesn't know what water is.
I love that. Yes, a fish doesn't know that it's in water.
Yeah, it just is there. And when you're outside of America, it becomes one of your defining features. It's like a second skin, and it's everything. Everything you do, you are the American. It depends, I guess, on how integrated you are, how many fellow Americans you're with. But even if you have a lot of friends who are also American, that's one of the things that binds you together is this shared nationality and the shared sense of experiences and television. And but to people outside, the people who are citizens of this country, that will be the first thing that you are, the American, which can be a lot to hold.
Yes. Yeah. Does it get easier because as the years go by?
I think like anything, you get used to it, and maybe when you get older, you're not as. Hopefully, you get a little bit more comfortable in your skin, and you don't need to impress everyone. You don't need to win the approval, and you know where your limits are as well. I mean, I'm not saying I have never been asked to answer all of the questions or the supposed ills of that my country has portrayed. I don't want to. People are pretty good at separating the two, but there are lots of stereotypes, and there are lots of other things, and but you get used to that, I guess. Yeah.
I want to ask about the title, Misplaced Persons. I think you have a taste for ironic titles. I'm thinking about your first novel, The Good Guy, which struck me as being perfect. The character wasn't as good, but this is another story. And Misplaced Persons, it seems to me that refugees are not only misplaced. Some of your characters, I have a feeling that Neil, as his character comes as I come to understand his character, I got the sense that he was misplaced as well, in the wrong happiness queue, until things happen and he sort of comes to his senses. And I think that resolution is beautifully done in your book.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, the parents, Marcy and Neil, are in midlife, and I think a lot of people find midlife to be confusing, and that's the question where you start looking back, and if you get to that point and you haven't got a couple regrets, things you would have done differently in retrospect, but it's too late. You realize it's too late to undo it, and you've got to go forward. And then you, quite often, the way these things fall, particularly now, is that parents in middle age will have children who are teenagers, and that's also a very uncertain time where you're figuring out who you are as a person. And you feel out of place. I think it's not. And then I've put them in a different, they're in a different country from where they from where they originate, or except for the kids originate there, but their parents from somewhere else. So you have a household of people all with, quite different, with separate origins. And in the middle of this great upheaval, and then there's the refugee and they're all misplaced.
Yes, you just explained to me. Now I see that it really is a very apt title for the
just character. In the times of people's lives.
Yes.
But it is also true that there's misplaced in terms of lost, and there's misplaced in terms of just not in the right place where they're supposed to be. Right. And hopefully there's multiple meanings there.
Yes. There are. I wanted to make sure that we had time for you to read a passage from your book that I think will really resonate with those of us in this country who see the memorials that citizens have constructed after an attack, memorial to those who have been injured and killed. And then it's only a quick screenshot, whereas your description, I think, is much more poignant. And that's on page. You have the text. It's on page 322, and the last paragraph. Every race and color was represented. A crowd has spontaneously gathered
yes.
in front of is it the Bourse?
The Bourse, which is the old stock exchange. Yeah.
Yes.
In the center of Brussels.
Yes, gradually, spontaneously. And Neil and Marcy and the children attend, and all together. And you describe that at the bottom of that page, and then the top of page 323, if you will.
So the two paragraphs there?
Yes.
Okay, so starting out with every race and color.
Yes.
Every race and color was represented in the crowd at the Bourse. Some had brought flags from their home country to include in the makeshift memorial. Brazil, Spain, Portugal, France. The mood was solemn and dignified. People talked in whispers. A gentle breeze blowing through the square carried a promise of spring. Alec joined a group drawing in chalk on the pavement, shading and contouring to create a three-dimensional effect, while his friend Farah wrote Nous aimons Bruxelles in lovely script. Neil watched them work together, heads bent in conversation. At one point, she said something and Alec looked up at her, face beaming. From somewhere in the crowd, the song Give Peace a Chance was struck up. Softly and shyly, Marcy joined in, belting out the words unselfconsciously, despite her voice being only so-so. Neil chanced a tentative glance in Sasha's direction. To his surprise, his daughter was not attempting to slink away in embarrassment, but holding fast to her mother's hand, mouth open in song. As the number of singers swelled, the wobbles and defects in individual voices were smoothed over. The sound became rounder and fuller. It gave Neil chills, and as the final chorus came round, he lent his own voice to their effort.
Yes, I think that was a remarkable passage, reminding us all of those sentiments that are universal after that sort of thing. Now, our viewers might want to know something about your life in your hometown of Falmouth.
Falmouth link.
Yes, right. You skated a great deal. Tell viewers about that.
I did. I skated at the old Falmouth rink.
Yeah. Oh, the old Falmouth rink, yes.
Yeah, spent a lot of time there. It was my main activity, I think, probably from when I was about 10 until I left for college. It was, it's a big part of forming who I am and where I am, and I'll always be a skater. And when I was here just now, I couldn't skate when we were in England, when we lived in the UK for 7 years, because there was no rink anywhere near it. But now that I'm in Amsterdam, there is a rink. And I started skating again. And just on this trip, I just purchased new skates for the first time in like 30 years, definitely in need of a new pair. So I can't wait to try them out when I get back.
Have you seen our new rink?
I have been to the new rink, and it is gorgeous. And I know that Sia did wonderful things to make it as environmentally as efficient as it could be from an energy source. And I think that is just a marvel. What a gift. Yes. What a gift she gave the town. And
you graduated Falmouth High School.
1984.
Have you had any reunions?
I have missed all of our reunions. Sadly, I have been, because they tend to take place in November, and my kids were in school, and but we haven't had one for a while. Next one, I really hope I can get to, because I don't have any kids in school anymore. So I have more flexibility. So get working on it, class of 84. But I have seen a couple. I'm having dinner with a few of my class of 84 schoolmates tonight, in fact.
Oh, that's good. That's very nice to hear. This is my personal. There's no reason to get into the mechanics of writing. We know that it's hard work, but I'm curious about how long it might have taken you to finish this book.
This one, it's hard to put a date on it, because I started something right after I finished The Good Guy, and I was very excited about it, and then I hit a wall, and it wasn't really coming together, and so I was at a dead end, and I had to I set it aside. Maybe someday it'll come back. I still have hopes for it. And then I turned to this. So that was about 18 months. And then it was a very slow. Second books are really hard. And I had, a lot of life things. My kids were all leaving for college. So they were leaving the nest. And then my dad died, after he had a long illness or a slow decline. And that was emotionally very, the upheaval there, it made it hard to write. And then we moved countries. So all these things happened to slow me down. And so I think it was at least 4 years, And during many of that time, I thought I will never finish it. This will be it.
Well, I'm so grateful that you persisted. It's a wonderful book.
Oh, thank you.
Viewers who are interested in reading it can find it on Amazon. It's Misplaced Persons, and a very, very rewarding book to read, as I said, full of wonderful insights about the times that we are living in now. And I cannot thank you enough for being here and telling us about life in Belgium. And I would assume that American readers will be just as enthusiastic as your French and Dutch and English speaking. Will it be translated?
I don't know. The Good Guy had a Spanish edition. So that was it. So I don't handle the foreign rights. There's my agent there's someone that she deals with on that. And I haven't heard anything like that. Hopefully they'll be.
Well, we're lucky here that we're going to be able to read that easily. And I thank you so much for being on the program. And
thank you. This was my pleasure.
Yes. And good luck with your next book. I'm sure that's brewing.
I'm trying. Yeah.
Good.
It's. Yeah. I mean, I hope I won't hit a similar dead end. But no, I think this one. I think I'm on to something. I hope.
Good. Anyway. Well, you're an inspiration to all the would-be writers out there. The message is persist and keep at it.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And viewers, thank you very much for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you next time on Conversations with Barbara. Good night.